Well, guys, yeah, quickly about a little bit about myself. So, of course, I currently head HR at Airmeet. Prior to this, I've been with organizations, global organizations, heading their um, global HR portfolios. I have about 12, 13 years of experience. Today, I'm talking about the topic about how to really ace the remote interview, right? So in the last, I think in the last decade, I've done about thousands of interviews, and I think in the last 4 to 5 years, a lot of interviews have been transformed into remote interviews. Having said that, because we hire globally, it's going to be really difficult to interview in person, and remote interview has really come in handy for us to or help us with selection. So I'll just quickly take you through a few best practices and a few tips. I'll spend about 10 minutes doing that, and I'll also open up the rest of the 10 minutes for questions if you have any. So let me know if you can see my screen. A few emojis will do. Right. Yeah, there you go. Sounds good. So today I'll take you through a few factors that you need to be prepared with, right? I mean, there are tons of articles on the internet that you will find what to be prepared with. But let me take you through a few very crucial ones so that you know what you need to have handy before you start the interview. The recommended best practices and a few tips for you to create impact in that interview, right? So factors to be prepared with, definitely technology, right? It's right now remote interviews have become the only way to go forward because of the pandemic, and I think going forward, 90% of interviews are going to be online, right? When you say online, there are several things that you can do. One, create a great workspace for yourself, right? And have technology in hand where you are testing your audio, video, etc., and keeping them ready, and clearly avoiding last minute glitches. And when you're on the video, right, it's important that you appear confident, make the eye contact, and speak, or perhaps really articulate well when you're talking to the interviewer. So those are the things that you might want to be prepared with. And do your research. It's important for you to ensure that you understand the role, you understand the company, you have the right kind of questions um, noted down, and definitely research about the company in places like Glassdoor and LinkedIn to understand the culture of the organization, understand the way they function, right? And once you have your questions ready, do not hesitate. Always clarify your questions, ask those questions, and always try and understand how the culture of the organization really is, because in the interview you have to understand that it's not only the company that's assessing you, you're also assessing the organization, assessing the people that you're working with. So it's important that it's a two-way conversation and you have enough questions um, to clarify those. What are the best practices that I might want to share with you today is, if you know that the work is also remote, you might want to clearly pre-assess, right? That if you can work in a remote situation, in remote environments, are you prepared with what it takes to be working in those in that environment, in that workspace? Can you thrive in places which are um, direction, which are ambiguous, which has less direction, right? Can you cope with that situations with self drive, self motivation, right? If you are that person, I think stepping into a workspace that is fully remote really works. Otherwise, I think you should assess for yourself what kind of workspace really suits you. And after that, understand that it's going to be a two-way conversation about getting to know about the company and the company getting to know about you. So there could be several rounds of interview. Always, there are two things that you have to do very carefully during such remote interviews. Is first, listen, right? And do not hesitate to ask questions, right? And do not rush into conversations that will kind of break the deal, right? Do not rush into conversations about compensation. spend good enough time to understand about how the company functions, what are the key attributes that they really look forward for in the employee that they want to hire, right? Ask questions about culture, ask questions about what are the key attributes that they look forward for. Some tips that you can take away from here is clearly communicate thoughtfully. It's important for you to articulate the way you communicate your stuff, right? So it's just not enough that you portray your skills, your knowledge about technology, or knowledge about the work that you have. I mean, or the role that you're going to attempt. So it's important that you also articulate your experiences through instances and situations, right? Give examples. Whenever you're talking about anything that you have learned, give examples about it. And do not hesitate to talk about failures, right? It's going to be an important part where when you're sharing things about failures, people are going to understand how you really coped with that failure. How did you really use that learning to ensure and another situation like that has been handled really well, right? So do not hesitate to share your weaknesses. Of course, you have to share your strengths, but do not hesitate to share weaknesses. It's a crucial point for both parties to understand each other when you are remotely interviewing, right? And always share points that you may not be comfortable with. If you think that if you're not comfortable with a few things, please be upfront about it, right? During remote interviews, if you are relying on factors that are that are momentary, right? It's not going to be useful for you in the long run, because clearly in the long run, all decisions that you take momentarily may fall apart, because because if you have to really create a relationship with an organization in the long run, it's important for you to be honest about yourself, share things that you're uncomfortable with, ensure that everything is things are clear between both the parties, and then move ahead. So these are the tips that I might give for you to really ace the remote interview. Of course, there are tons of other material out there in the internet for you to understand, but these are very crucial because in the last couple of years that I've been doing remote interviews, this has helped me really pick the right set of people who fit the remote culture as well as fit the organization culture. So I'd like to open this conversation for questions, if any.
Which is what can people do in order to improve their chances of being hired remotely?
Yeah, I think being honest about your skills, right? First of all, prepare thoroughly about your skills. So the two things very imperative during remote interviews is 50% is your skills, right? Can you do the job? Do you have the attributes required to fulfill the job, right? But the rest of the 50% is whether you're a culture fit, right? So understand about the company. So for you to really understand about the company, there are a few things that I myself do, right? I also kind of give tips to a few friends and mentees. Go through Glassdoor, go through LinkedIn, understand how employee friendly they are, what are the kind of benefits, what are the kind of policies they have, how do they really treat their employees. There are also places where you can connect with a few employees online and ask them for references. Of course, the organization does references on you. So, from a candidate point of view, you could also do that reference and understand the culture and then prepare yourself on that, right? You might want to really come out and, be presentable in terms of how you can handle situations well, whether you can whether you have the ability to make decisions, whether you have the ability to work under pressure, work under tight timelines, work under ambiguous situations. Prepare yourself on that, right? Look back on your experiences, on what all you've handled, how you've solved problems, right? So use those instances to tell about your experiences, and that passion, right, will really reflect when you're talking about a few things that you've authentically done in the past. So that would help you really gain strength on how you may fit culturally in the organization. So, how to tackle the question, what are your weaknesses? What exactly does the employer tries to assess through this question? So, weaknesses is not a question to um, you know, it's not a question to dismiss someone, right? Weaknesses is a question for us to understand you better, right? If you think you cannot work under tight timelines, you might want to tell that. Maybe we will fit you in a position where tight timelines is not required. You will have enough time to kind of come up with your creative, innovative ideas. So you are basically being honest about what your weaknesses are. By telling this, you're not putting yourself down, right? And the HR is not going to assess you thinking that, oh, maybe you don't fit the job, right? Coming up about your weaknesses just shows that you are self-aware, right? You will do something to actually come out of the, or probably prepare better with your weaknesses and then tackle them with better solutions next time, right? So I would say just be honest about what your weaknesses are, but prepare it well, articulate it well. Do not say I'm lazy, right? I can't get up in the morning and come on to a meeting at 9 a.m. Articulate it better. Yeah. So few examples would be, if you think you're someone who can really fare well in a creative environment, that means you're someone who cannot work in pressurized situations. You might want to say that. So I do really well when there is less pressure, and then I'm able to really come up with a lot of creative ideas. I may not be a perfectionist, but then giving me enough time to kind of look back on my abilities to innovate well, can give me that. I mean, it's not, you can convert that weakness into a strength. Saying
Waves.
that you need enough time to come back with creative solutions, because that's going to impact in the longer run. And if pressurized, you may come up with solutions that's not going to work out in the organization or in that situation. Maybe it's just going to be very temporary solution, but may not be useful for in the long run. So you may want to give articulate in a way that your weakness is not a weakness in every situation, but you could definitely turn that into a strength.
Cool. Thank you so much. That's quite informative.
Sure. How do I identify my weakness? I think you should go back and check about what you do well. See, in organizations, people really um, try to work with bright people, bright-minded individuals, right? When we say that, if you are someone who can come up with a lot of ideas, those are your strengths. But also look at, I can come up with ideas, but I cannot consistently be on several meetings in a day giving several ideas, right? So you may want to go back and see what are the limitations that may not let you fulfill your strengths fully, right? So those become your weaknesses. Best platforms to search remote jobs. So there are several. So LinkedIn is one. Remote jobs is one.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know if Tech Job Fair was also having a lot of jobs available. So there's one question under QA. I still failed the interview despite the interview admitting I was the best candidate. Okay, maybe you're the best candidate, Ernest. But what did the interviewer really want in terms of the fitment into the role, right? You might want to ask for feedback. Pradika has a question. What are some tips for freshers? Like, first interview always makes us nervous. What are the things to avoid? So I would say any interview, it's not the first interview, any interview makes people nervous because you are meeting another individual, a very strange individual. So ensure that you're fully hydrated, you're fully calmed down. Be at a place that is fully suitable for you to kind of sit down and be yourself altogether. So it's important for you to look back and always come up with honest answers. Do not rush into giving an answer that you may want to impress the interviewer, so that you're unnecessarily putting pressure back on you. So when you're coming out and addressing those questions from a passionate background, basically from your experiences, you are definitely going to articulate it in a way that is very interesting for yourself. That interest, that passion is going to show in the way you answer. So always um, approach interview questions in a way that you would talk to a friend, right? How to get the interview as an intern without any experience? I think there are several intern jobs available. You might want to scout for it. But definitely putting yourself, I think one of the best examples is I hired an intern who had written me a lengthy email talking about how that person can make a difference in the HR team. So I think such approaches really are proactive. May land you an internship with people who may be looking for people who are proactive. So that is one way you can. So you need to put yourself into the shoes of the HR director or the HR head, trying to see what are the solutions you can provide. So as an intern, if you can really create an impact like that and send out an email to that person, if impressed, maybe you can get an internship there. Right. So let's. I think we are short of time, but I'll take the next two
Yeah.
three questions. My wife is holding both bachelor and master degrees and don't have any work experience. I gain work experience. She tried multiple intern and entry level opportunity. She get response. Okay, I don't understand the question here, but I think you're trying to tell that she has several degrees, but she's not able to land a job or an internship. So I would say scout a lot on LinkedIn. Approach people and ask them to refer you into the organization. Reference is one very solid way for you to get entry into the organization, because once you are familiar with people there and ask them for references, the HR team or the talent acquisition team tends to kind of really, um, what do you say, really value the fact that people took that effort to ask for references, and when the references come in, they may want to talk to you. And third thing is, if you know HRs, please write to them, giving them, solutions to problem that they may be facing. You can look for what kind of problems they're facing through LinkedIn, through Glassdoor, and other forums where employees write, right? So I think a couple of these things have landed internship and jobs. Of course, there are several other job posts that you can apply to and perhaps try it out.
Yeah, I think we are running out of your time. Thank you so much, Meena, for the great session. It was very informative for the people, especially who are looking for a job. I think it was very helpful, and I really appreciate you taking your time off.
Sure. Thank you,
Thank
Urvashi,
you.
and thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.